Thank you everyone for joining the Blockworks Silent Disco. I can feel the energy in the room. It's really great, and so part of that's because we're talking payments and enterprise, and have two excellent guests here to discuss that with us. We have Jess Houlgrave from Wallet Connect and Christian Rao from MasterCard. So let me kick it over to you guys for some introductions before we dive in.
Great to see everyone. Thank you for having me. I'm Jess Houlgrave. I'm the CEO at Wallet Connect. Payments is close to my heart because prior to this, I was at a European acquirer, Checkout.com, and Wallet Connect has been around since 2018. We connect apps and wallets fundamentally to allow them to exchange information and results often in on-chain transactions. So this year we'll do about $400 billion of value transfer across the Wallet Connect network. We work with hundreds of different wallets, custodians, software wallets, mobile wallets, hardware wallets, and on the other side, everyone from payment service providers to DeFi protocols to NFT marketplaces and more.
Thanks.
My name is Christian. I'm leading crypto and digital asset go-to-market for MasterCard. MasterCard, is one of the leading digital payment networks. We've been doing this for 50-odd years, and as we see that the world around us changes, we need to change. So I think a lot of people see that they don't pull their cards too much anymore, but use their phones. And obviously, blockchain and digital assets will again mark a significant change for the payment industry, and that's why we're engaging in this space.
Yeah, fantastic. So both of these segments, enterprise and payments, are very perennial topics across market cycles. I mean, going back to 2017, enterprise was top of mind for a lot of people, and right now, stablecoins and payments are top of mind for a lot of people. So from your respective seats, what are the trends and kind of market dynamics that you're focused most closely on and most interested in right now?
So we have, I think in the last year or so, seen payments as a segment really probably one of our fastest growing segments. About 65% of what we do on the Wallet Connect network is DeFi. The rest you can kind of split across various things. Payments is still sub 1%, so it's still very, very early. But we're seeing those numbers grow sometimes 100% month on month. So we're talking here about various different payments use cases, consumers being able to pay for goods and services either online or in store, payouts as another use case, connecting a crypto wallet to a card, for example, to allow for a payments flow. So I think what's really interesting for me this cycle versus some of the cycles that we've seen before is that a lot of this is actually production. It's not a kind of proof of concept press release coming from a big company about, hey, we're doing something in crypto, and then you kind of never see it happen. What's actually happening now as part of this cycle is work that's going into production that's actually ending up in the hands of consumers. And that for me is really exciting. A, because it means that technology is getting out there. B, it comes with a whole load of new user experience challenges, which is what we love to solve at Wallet Connect. So whether that's around different assets on different chains, how do I as an end user know what asset my chain is on, how do I spend it? These are all complications that we have to solve, but it's cool to see this technology really out there and being used.
We always enter into these industry with a strong payment background, right? And at the beginning, it was all about Bitcoin and Ethereum. You want to invest, you want to get rich very quickly, which is still, part of the appeal to certain parts of the industry. But we see that as we migrate towards stable coins and related use cases, it's more of our natural habitat. And we are providing a lot of value, I would think, in the on-ramp and off-ramp, and there's a lot of very interesting use cases around spending your crypto in different shapes and forms. But we see now that having yield-bearing assets in wallets, self-custodial, centralized wallets, that's really interesting, and we see that this can be the next generation of fintech, basically following the mobile-first challenger banks that started in Europe some 12, 15 years back. And that's what's interesting. And a lot of the themes that Jess spoke to resonate because for us, interoperability, safety, security, compliance, all of these are sort of non-negotiable must-haves. And we see that the industry, on the back of regulation and I want to say, overall maturing is heading in this direction.
Yeah, absolutely. So legacy fintech and legacy card providers, I think, do UX really well. I think it's very easy. Everyone would agree. So you mentioned kind of some of the UX challenges and trade-offs, like maybe self-custody or onboarding. Tell us about how you approach some of those trade-offs and kind of just the general view of those things.
I would disagree with legacy. Let's call it incumbent. Let's settle for incumbent, please.
Sure.
And I think this is it's a really fair point, because other than people in this room, nobody says, I want to do an on-chain transaction. Like nobody says, I want to do an ISO 222 real-time payment. This is just not how it works, right? People want to subscribe to Netflix or buy new sneakers or whatever. And for me, the bar in terms of user experience is really a tokenized debit card on my iPhone. And there's Google people, obviously. But I think this is really where the bar sits, and the industry needs to mature and go in this direction, because all this bridging from one chain to the other and conversion. This works for, I would say, 3 to 5% of the global population that really have a crypto-first mindset. It works for people, I want to say, in the global south that are, don't have access to financial systems like we do here in Western Europe when it comes to inflationary environment, monetary policy. So these people are willing to jump through hoops and hoops. But I think if you want to get to the next, 10, 15, 25% of users, the user experience needs to be more at the center of discussion. And I feel that this is really what the industry is also recognizing. And I think there's so much potential, right? Self-custody for me can be what open banking always promised to be, never really delivered. So, owning my assets, having very convenient services plugged into via platforms such as Wallet Connect. I think there's so much potential, and for me, it's almost a normal maturing cycle, right? Handling MP3s before the iPod was there was a nightmare, right? You download it, you move it to a USB stick, and then it screws up the ID3 tags. Few people will remember. And I think in crypto we are almost still in this early phase, and we now need that, the iPod moment where we say, okay, this is an industrialized, streamlined experience. That's a bit my perspective.
Yeah, I think what a lot of people, especially if they come purely from a crypto background, think is like, oh, crypto is going to be the next payments technology, right? And crypto is a great settlement rail. But payment, as probably Christian will know better than anybody else, is not just about the settlement of value. It's about all of the other things that go around that. It's about the user experience of actually affecting that payment. It's about the information exchange that takes place between a merchant and everybody in between and the end user. It can be around the exchange of shipping information and things like this. We also forget that sometimes payments isn't just a one-click push payment, as we are very familiar with in the crypto payments, in the crypto space, but actually a huge amount of the payments that we use every day as consumers are recurring payments, they're pull payments, they're all sorts of other things which crypto technology today is still a little bit clunky for. And so I think Christian's right, the user experience bar that we have to meet as an industry is incredibly high. And we need an awful lot of investment to make sure that user experience is just as seamless, whether that's around fraud and risk and consumer chargebacks. How do we think about consumer protections in the crypto space? So there's a lot of infrastructure that's still to be built around that before we have a kind of comparable experience between Web 2 and Web 3. I think a lot of it we're getting there, we're starting to solve. But every time in crypto we solve one challenge, we seem to create more for ourselves. And so the next few years is going to be really interesting when we think about all of these different assets on different chains and having to interact for the first time with this like self-custody world that's sort of been a bit isolated from the traditional financial system. And as these two worlds meet, how do they interact in a kind of compliant and safe way for end users?
So you mentioned an iPhone moment and thinking about what's kind of crypto's breakout use case. A frequent debate in the space is what's crypto's best product market fit. And so the title of this session is Beyond Speculation, because speculation is often posited as crypto's best product market fit with directional bets, perps, trading, all the things we're familiar with. But how would you respond to that? Do you think that these more kind of less speculative use cases are crypto's product market fit?
I mean, for me, it's almost like, if you have a hammer in your hand, everything looks like a nail. So when we look at things, we always want to learn how we can use it for payments, right? So there might be other use cases, right? We talked about provenance on blockchain, which might be super interesting for luxury goods or pharmaceuticals. But for us, it is payments. And I like the idea of stable coins and quite a bit because, as just mentioned, crypto or stablecoins can be a very potent and highly performant settlement leg. And if we embed this almost as a new engine into traditional financial services that work very, very well, I think that can be a very potent mix because we offer global interoperability between 3.8 billion cards and 150 million physical acceptance locations, right? But when you tap your phone or you enter something on the website, essentially that's only the authorization that is happening. Few people appreciate that, and nobody should really care as long as it works safe and simple. But then all the sort of the dark work behind the curtain when it comes to moving the money, I think stablecoins have a very interesting role to play there. And that's why we are very bullish about that industry.
Jess, any thoughts there?
Yeah, look, I mean, I think the crypto is such a broad-reaching technology that it's going to find different pockets of product market fit all over the place. Speculation was one and an early one, but that's actually quite common with new technologies. Anything that touches the 7 deadly sins, you typically find people getting excited about early on. We see that even when the internet started to emerge. What was the early use cases of the internet? So it's no surprise to me that found product market fit for crypto early on. What I think is exciting about this moment in time is it's not just about a niche group of people who are going to be interested and benefit by that aspect of the technology. But as we start to embed these rails in the things that every single one of us use every day, probably without knowing it, we're going to onboard billions of new users to this technology, and they're not going to have to go through the pain points of like self-custody necessarily, although some of them may want to, but hopefully we're going to create this very, very seamless onboarding experience so that everybody's using this under the hood. It's going to bring a whole load of efficiency benefits and much more to individuals, and so I think we're going to see much wider adoption as a result of this type of application of the technology.
Yeah, certainly. Well, one of the things about this moment in time is kind of the regulatory formation that's occurring. So just had Genius passed about a month ago in the US. What are your contributions in those conversations? And what are some of the kind of banner things that you think in these spaces have to be included in that regulatory formation?
I mean, for us, it's self-custody. We have a network of hundreds of different wallets, millions and millions of end users who use those wallets. And for me, it's really important that those users of wallets can interact with the traditional financial world. So when we're talking about policy, my question is always like, how does a self-custodial wallet come into play here? We had this, when Mika came in Europe at the end of last year, we had this like mad rush of people being like, hey, can you help us? Because for the first time, I'm not going to be able to just copy and paste a wallet address into my exchange and be able to send funds from my self-custodial account to my exchange account. So suddenly all of these types of flows in crypto in Europe were coming under travel rule compliance, and everyone was panicking, how do we solve that? And at Wallet Connect, we have specific messaging types that allow you to do that. So we worked a lot with the industry to enable self-custodial wallets to stay plugged in to the crypto exchanges. And I can see the same possibility as we think about payments, regulation, and other things. It's like we need to make sure that we don't end up with this two-tier of, if you're in self-custody, you can't interact with the rest of the financial world, and you can only have crypto in your neobank account. We really want to make sure that these two worlds can operate well together. But I think that on the very positive side, I do think things like the Genius Act and just the way that regulators are starting to think about this is very positive for us overall.
I wouldn't say that because back to your question, how does MasterCard actually contribute to the regulatory process? I would say quite little, honestly. But I think what we see is that regulation that puts consumer protection and sustainable innovation at the center of the discussion and allows for a level playing field is essential, because it moves away a lot of uncertainty and sort of removes hesitation on consumer side. Because in the traditional financial system, we are all used to deposit insurance, zero liability, chargeback rights, and almost suspenders and a belt, right? And in crypto, there's oftentimes, especially in self-custody, there's nobody to call, right? If I do something stupid, I could put my lifetime savings at risk. So I believe that regulation, such as MiCA, such as the Genius Act, which again doesn't protect people from being stupid, but it puts a regulatory framework around crypto, helps the crypto players operate by the rules, because everybody asks them to operate by the rules. But if there's none, it's admittedly hard. It makes it way easier for us and other sort of TradFi or incumbent players to engage, because we have a reputation and existing business that we don't want to jeopardize. So again, I think nuanced consumer protection and sustainable innovation oriented regulation is very, very good. And then again, it depends on, you can always debate about the small print, how that should look like. But I think direction of travel is positive. So if you want to sit with the adults, right, not by the children table and say, oh, we are all unregulated, I think that works as long as you do things in a niche or very small part of the market. But as you grow and people will look, what are they doing? That's really interesting. But if you do financial services, at some point the question is that regulated? Will come. And I don't think it's a bad question per se. I don't think it's a bad question.
With Genius, that bill, the acronym, it didn't connect with me. I love the acronyms they come up with, but I could have done a little better with that one, I think. Last question before we wrap up. We're sitting here, October of 2025. It's been the largest year for payments and enterprise use cases. Looking ahead, what are you excited about? What's coming down the pipeline that you're looking at and thinking, this is going to be really impactful? Product-wise, trend-wise, anything.
So if the trajectory continues, a direction of travel, I'm already very happy. I'm very interested in risk-free assets, whether it's stable coins or tokenized money market funds, that consumers would be more open to spend versus Bitcoin, which a lot of people would reference to as digital gold. So I think moving further into the payment direction makes it even more interesting. But again, if the direction of travel holds, I think we're in a good place.
I'm very excited about seeing different forms of payments start to emerge. We touched obviously on consumer pay-ins. We launched last week with a point-of-sale device to allow crypto wallets to pay in-store at some point-of-sale companies. I think payouts use cases are another one that I'm endlessly excited about. So we stop these painful cross-border movements for end consumers. So I think we're going to start to see a lot there. We're working also on recurring payments standards. A lot of this requires like deep chain level EIPs and standards to be written and takes years to evolve. So we're starting to see the adoption of some of those standards this year with the latest Ethereum upgrades that will allow for for efficient recurring payments from crypto wallets. So I think all of that is setting us up for over the next few years to see these much more kind of useful and closing that chasm to Web 2 over the next few years.
Yeah, excellent. Okay, last question, speed round. I'm going to put you on the spot here. You can plead the fifth if you want, but stablecoin specific chains, need them or don't need them?
I say no. Unreflected answer, I say no.
Love it.
I mean, for me, creates another challenge for our team to solve, which is always fun. So it keeps us busy. I think to suggest that the state of chains that we have today is the end state of chains is very naive. Like, there's a lot more that we can do. So I think the more innovation we see right now, the closer we're going to get to a great end user experience. Might be a bit of a winding journey, but I think all innovation right now is what we should be encouraging, so that we can see what the best in class will really look like.
Thank you both. Let's give it up for Jess and Christian.